Hiya, my name's Lee, I work for Micro Scooters, and today I'm going to show you how to change a folding block across the aluminium range. I'm going to use a Sprite that I've got here today. However, there are some similarities all across the range, and I shall talk about that, but the principle of changing them is all exactly the same. So, to start with, we're going to take off the locking mechanism. And to do that, we have to undo this knurled nut on this side of here. But to get it off, first of all, we've got to do it up, because there's a little clip that I'm going to show you. So we're going to push in this side on the hinge of the locking clamp as hard as we can to create a bit of space so we can do this nut up as far as we can. Now, on this piece here, I'll show you here, there's a little C-clip that just spins around in there, and that stops that nut coming off. And what we need to do is we need to be able to get that off. It can be a little bit fiddly. And there we go. And that's what it looks like. It's just a little C-clip that sits there. But make sure you keep it to one side. A good thing to do when you're taking your scooter bits is maybe have a little tray or something on one side so you don't lose any of your bits, or even take some pictures with your camera. So as you're disassembling it, you know where the bits are going. Right. So now we've got the C-clip off, we can actually undo this now. So then we have to unscrew as we normally would. And take that off. And then the locking clamp will come out the other side. And also, part of the locking clamp, there's a spring and a plunger. And I'll show you that as it all goes back together. The next thing we need to do is to remove the pivot axle of the folding block here. And you're going to need two 5mm Allen keys or sockets, whatever you've got. So one side, it's a two-piece bolt, so they lock into one another. You may well find, and you probably will find, that it might not seem tight, but what they are is they're tight against each other, because if they was really, really tight, then we wouldn't be able to fold it and unfold it. So they're tight against each other, and then we can undo. There we go, and then we've got the two-piece folding axle. Yeah, and then we'll push the button as we normally would do, and that just moves it up, and then we can slide it, and then we're in two pieces. So we can just put this to one side for the moment, and that leaves us with the deck and the folding block. Now on this particular model, we've got the kickstand on the left-hand side, two 4mm bolts on this side. And on this particular model, the bolts are two-piece bolts, and they go all the way through to the other side to a 5mm bolt, which is that side. One half. Other half. There we go, kickstand comes off, and the two-piece hold, and then the folding block can come off. Right, as I mentioned before, there are different principles with regards to across the range, with regards to the fitting. On this particular one, and this is off of a Speed, you will have 4 bolts that hold on the folding block. The principle is exactly the same, position is the same, but it's just that the fitting is just a little bit different. So depending on what model you've got on the website, it will show you whether you need the 3 bolts or whether you need the 4 bolts to fix your kickstand. So there we go. It's just the different ways of fix it the same with the bolts going in. But what we're going to do is we're going to now reassemble. So you've ordered your new folding block, and we're just going to go through that reassemble process. So we need to get that in position. We've got our kickstand, which goes on the left-hand side, and our through bolt on this particular model goes through. We can just finger tighten it up. It's always good to get all your, especially if you've got multiple bolts going through a particular object, is to get them finger tight first, to get them all lined up, and then we can go back and we can, once they're all in, we can do the tightening up process. So now they're both in. 4mm on the kickstand side, 5mm on the other. There we go, then we've got our folding block back in position. Now what we can do is we can start reassembling. And if you need to at any point, is change the button, the plunger for the locking, unlocking mechanism. They're pretty straightforward to do. You can either do it at this stage or do it if you only need to do it when it's on the scooter. And what you're going to need is that you're going to need a 13mm bolt, 13mm spanner, and all it is just undoing it and doing it back up. So yeah, I won't need to do that on this particular, but it's just a 13mm unscrewing back on. Right, so we need to put it back together again. What we're going to do is we're going to slide it down, and then we're going to get our axle pivot. Slide it through. Come through to the other side. $5mm on each side. And as I said before, the bolts are tight against each other, but you will see that you can actually move it, but it doesn't mean it's loose because they're tight against each other. Right, so now it comes to putting the locking clamp back together again. We go from this side, and as I said, there's a plunger and a spring that sits in this top bit here, and the long thready bit as part of the lock goes in through the bottom. So through that hole we can just about get that started, making sure that the handle's the right way round, so that's going to be the locking, because if you put it in upside down, then you're not going to be able to unlock it, and you're going to have to go and take it off again. So spring and plunger in through there, and it says sits underneath that cup, and you can keep your finger on there and we'll push that in. Now with a little knurled nut that's on the other side, we can do that in to hold it all back into place. Now the same as before, we need to tighten this right up to be able to expose the end of the thread so we can get that little C-clip back on again. Just needs a little bit of wiggling on this side. And we've got a little C-clip, and I've got some long nose pliers here, and it's just a case of putting it into the recess, little screwdriver, and just that's it, just a gentle backing, clip into place, and then we can loosen it off a little bit, because now the C-clip's in place, that little nut is not going to come off. You can loosen it off, so we make sure we've got the right tension on the clamp. There you go. It's just about finding the right piece of tension that keeps it in place, keep it locked. There we go. That is then your folding block changed.